Welcome in, everybody. This is Philip Hutcheson, Athletic Director for Lipscomb University with Word with the Herd. This is a special week this week. It's actually going to be a part one and part two of this week. We usually have one of our coaches on, and we will have that in part two with Coach Jeff Hernandez, the men's tennis coach at Lipscomb University. But speaking of men's tennis and women's tennis, baseball, and cross country as well, we lost a legendary coach this week in Coach Lynn Griffith. He was Lipscomb University Athletics Hall of Famer. He played tennis for Lipscomb. He coached for a number of years and was a very special man in the Lipscomb community. And in light of that, we have a part one episode this week that is actually remembering Coach Lynn Griffith. So you're about to enjoy that, and we hope you enjoy getting to hear from some of his players on the men's side, the women's side, and the high school side. And then in part two, you'll hear from Coach Jeff Hernandez about Lipscomb men's tennis and the fantastic year they had this year. So if you want to follow us on any of our social media feeds, it's at Lipscomb Bisons, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you want to listen to archived versions of this podcast for season one, you can listen to them on Spotify or watch them on YouTube. And if you want to catch up with Lipscomb Athletics on a daily basis, the best way to do that is lipscombsports.com. So without further ado, hope you enjoy part one, remembering the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Lynn Griffith. Well, hello, everybody. This is Philip Hutcheson, Athletic Director for Lipscomb University, and it's Word with the Herd. We're coming down the stretch for season number one here, as we have met almost every one of our coaches and programs. Just a few left. I hope you've had a great time listening to our coaches, learned a little bit more about Lipscomb Athletics. And as it turns out today, we have Coach Jeff Hernandez. Now, we call him Geoff, which is the easy way to remember how to spell his name. So it's Geoff, so we call him Geoff around the office. So Jeff Hernandez, he'll be with us here in the second half or a little bit more of our program today. But we have a special reason to kind of push the pause button with him for just a second. This week, Lipscomb Athletics and really Lipscomb University lost one of its all-time greats in Coach Lynn Griffith. Coach Griffith was a coach for a number of years of several of our teams, most notably our tennis teams. And if you're watching right now, you notice we have a lot more people on the screen than we normally do. It's usually one-on-one, but today, to start, we have several people on the screen, and all of the people that you see here, with the exception of one, well, they all kind of coached with Coach Griffith or played for Coach Griffith or both. And so we thought it would be great to get some people who played for him during their time, get some memories of him to reflect on what made him such a great coach. He went into the Lipscomb Athletics Hall of Fame in 2018. He coached tennis for over 20 years. He was a cross-country coach, and every year that he coached cross-country for Lipscomb University, he had at least one or more runners in the national championship race as an NAIA coach. He was an assistant baseball coach, so he had talent too. One of his sons actually played college baseball. The other one played tennis. And then he was a long-time professor and even department chair at Lipscomb University. So Coach Lynn Griffith passed away this week unexpectedly, and our condolences definitely go out to his family, Diane, Matthew, Cole, Samuel, and the rest of that family. But he was a fantastic person, great coach, and really had a great heart. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about him this morning, what made him such a good coach. We have a lot of people who watch this or listen to it who are coaches or enjoy college sports. And I think this part you're going to really enjoy getting to know what made him the Hall of Famer that he was. So you can't see my screen if you're visiting with me here, so I'll just kind of call on you, and I'll kind of work from left to right here. So I see Julie up there. So Julie, you might introduce yourself. Tell where you came from, when you played, and maybe if you remember the first time you met Coach Griffith or how you kind of first crossed paths with him. So Julie, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, Julie McDonald, or I'm from Jackson, Tennessee originally, and I played at Lipscomb University from 2000 to 2004, and that was Coach Griffith's first year coaching girls. So we were his first tennis daughters, so to say. And the first time I met him, I was in high school, and it was my signing day, and those were all kind of new and everything. So I don't know if he was that excited to be there. I just remember him being rough around the edges. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. We're going to have to break him down a little bit. So soften him up. And yeah, that was the first time I met him. So
if anybody if you knew Coach Griffith, you knew he definitely was a little bit rough around the edges, but in a good sort of a way. And Elizabeth, what about you? I see you on my screen. Maybe tell who you are, where you're from, and if you remember Coach Griffith too, you were one of his early recruits too, I think.
Yes. So I'm Elizabeth McFarland. I played from 2000 to 2004, and Julie and I were actually doubles partners for all 4 years. And so the first time I met Coach was at the Lipscomb courts. I think I was playing a tournament, and I had actually been recruited by George McIntosh. And Coach, I had decided I was going to come to Lipscomb and signed, and he introduced me to Coach, and I was like, kind of this, I was like, this will work, I guess. Not quite. I didn't know there was going to be a coaching change, but it ended up being wonderful, and we fell in love. And Julie and I had to break him in, and some of the guys on the team, they weren't used to traveling with girls, and so Julie and I bebop in as freshmen, and they were kind of like, what's going on?
So when you broke him in here, you're talking about you had to break him in a little bit. He had 2 boys, and then he adopted another one, Samuel, a little bit later on in life. So after you guys played for him, but he had the 2 boys already, and you had to break him in. Was there anything in particular that you remember, or is it just kind of his nature in general, Julie or Elizabeth? Anything that you remember about having to break him in?
Oh, I mean, he would ask us to do stuff in practice or like run, do things. And if we weren't doing something how he wanted it done, I don't think he knew how to get mad at us. He would just be like, ugh, and just like walk off. Like he didn't know what to do with us. He's like, do I get mad? Do I yell at you? I don't know. We would make him listen to music, girl music on trips, when he would be like, what is this? Like, why are we listening to this? We'd make him take us to the mall, like if there was like a rain out or cancellation. So just things like that he, had to get accustomed to with girls.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a real kind of mall guy to me,
no.
But
he would drop us off.
The first time he was like, I'll be back in like an hour. We're like, an hour? No. That is not going to work. And definitely after a couple of months, he looked at Julie and I, and he's like, now I know why God gave me signs.
Yeah, so he knew God had put him in his sweet spot in the family sense. So Virginia, now you played for him as well. So introduce yourself and tell when you came in, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm Virginia Baldwin Cole. I played with those crazy girls. I was there from 2001 to 2004 as a player, and then 2005 as a graduate assistant. And Julie actually was a graduate assistant with me that last year as well. But yeah, I played at Georgia Southern my freshman year, and didn't have the best experience with the tennis. Tennis team was great. Tennis coach was a little bit different from what I was used to. I was used to that kind of rough tumble coach. And so whenever I met Coach Griffith, I was like, oh yeah, I like this guy. I can get used to this. And his nickname for me was Little Attila, because he called his wife Attila. And so he had a full year of Julie and Elizabeth and another couple of players. And then here I kind of come in, this girly tomboy. So I was sort of like the gel that sort of brought them together. And so I would always sit up at the front of the bus, and I would kind of manage, all right, we got to listen to a little bit of football for Coach, so that we'd listen to the girl music, and I loved it, but then we'd have to listen to some football too.
So for people who don't know him as well, Tilly is what I guess the grandchildren, help me out here, guys. I think Tilly is what the grandchildren call Diane, and they call him or called him Ward. And kind of tells you something when the grandmother's named Tilly because of Attila the Hun, and the grandfather's named Ward because he's like a warden, like the warden of a jail or something. And so definitely kind of a no-nonsense guy, but kind of crusty, a little bit crusty on the outside, soft on the inside, you know. So looking at doubles team now, I'll switch over just for a second here to a couple of the men's players, and then we'll talk to a few of the coaches that kind of coached with them as well. I see a doubles team, another doubles team on here. I see Sam Hutchison, who ironically shares my last name, is actually my son. So Sam Hutchison, he's a college rising senior. And I see Jackson Duncan, and I know Jackson pretty well too because he's actually my nephew. And so both of these guys, by the way, Sports Tea with JD, Jackson Duncan is actually a broadcaster and has just finished his first season of podcast and with a lot of pretty great guests. So check it out sometime as well. But Jackson and Sam both played doubles, and maybe you can tell what was special about your team, especially in 2016. Jackson, I'll start with you. Introduce yourself. Tell kind of, you remember the first time you met Coach Griffith, and then tell what was special about one of the teams that you played on.
Yeah, my name is Jackson Duncan, and I started in 9th grade for the high school team. I think that was 2013, but they started a middle school program my 8th grade season, and I never played tennis. And I just started, and not many people played, so it kind of went well, and I was a big baseball player. And Coach Griffith, I remember in 8th grade, Sam actually was on that high school tennis team as a middle schooler, and my older brother was on the team, and I was kind of debating, do I play high school baseball or tennis because they're both in the spring. And Coach Griffith, with his memorable voice that I could not replicate right now, was like, you need to go play some tennis with us. And so I got drawn to the tennis side and played 4 years. And then, yeah, it was super special playing with Sam, but Coach Griffith really pulled out the best in us. And that 2016 team was just the perfect mix of having some seniors and juniors and having some experience the year before in the state Final Four. And so to be able to win it for a coach, I don't want to step on Sam's shoes, but if you look at the newspaper for May 26th in the Tennessean, the day after we won the state championship in 2016, Sam says, quote, "We did this for Coach," or something along the lines of, "We won this for Coach Griffith." And I thought that was so awesome to see that during this time, to be like looking at that 4 years and 2 or 3 weeks ago, that we won that for Coach Griffith because he meant that much for our program.
Yeah, so the team was 20-0 that year, undefeated, and went on to win the state championship. First time Lipscomb Academy had won, or Lipscomb High School had won the state in almost 40 years. And so it was a huge win for the tennis team. And Coach Griffith, as you might have gathered, had coached college for a long time, moved down to coach high school tennis, and had some tremendous success there too. So Sam, you played for him as well. Introduce yourself. And Jackson told a little bit about it, but maybe you can remember a few of your first interactions with Coach Griffith.
Yeah, so hey, I'm Sam Hutcheson. Like Jackson mentioned, I started playing for Lynn Griffith my 8th grade year. I didn't play any spring sports in middle school, and there was a way I could play on the high school team. So I played 5 years under Coach Griffith. And beforehand, I only really knew him as a guy. He went to my church, and so I just kind of distantly knew him. I vaguely remember hearing that he adopted a son from Haiti and seeing that in like the Church Herald or whatever. But then obviously, right off the bat, quickly knew him as way more than that. Something I think was super cool about him as a coach is he kind of knew, he had individual relationships with all the players and kind of knew how to push us together. He, especially with our team, I mean, being cousins with Jackson and being friends with a lot of guys, I mean, we're very competitive in practice, don't want to lose, and he knew that, and so he would kind of fuel that a lot, which I really loved. But kind of like what was mentioned, I mean, we wanted to win for him. He's the kind of coach you can rally around and get behind. And something I also really just appreciate is he was way more than just tennis. You could go up and talk to him. I know football was mentioned and all this kind of stuff, but he would talk about just about anything. And he loved to. He was very inquisitive about our lives. And yeah, it was really special to be able to win a state championship for him, because that's something that never been done. And there's a video somewhere, I'm sure you could find it if you looked hard enough on Facebook, but after we win, the first person he runs and just hugs Diane, and it was really special just to see how much that meant to him, as well as us, which was really, really special.
Yeah, it was definitely a team effort with him all the way with coaching, with Diane as well. And she was just as competitive as, or she is just as competitive as he was. So, I'm going to get Sam to do this Coach Griffith impression maybe later. So, but Mario, I see Mario Hernandez, and I'm going to go ahead. Mario, we're recording this in the morning this afternoon. This is Tuesday. We're recording it. Don't know when you'll be listening to it or watching it, maybe later. But actually, the service is this afternoon, and so we'll be a lot of us will be there or watching it on live stream. But Mario Hernandez has a perspective as a player. Also, was the coach of our team for a while. Yeah, you can see he's in uniform right now, and he's got to get on to training some of our troops here. So Mario, when you have to cut out, you just cut out. But I want to get your perspective here as a player, and I also want to hear from you just as a coach. I mean, you immediately turned around and had to be a coach, and so maybe there's some things that you took right away into what you then did after your time as a player. Go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about that.
Definitely, and thanks, Philip. Yes, I was a player from 2008 to 2011. And actually, Coach Griffith was kind of the head of the tennis program, but he wasn't directly the head coach of the men's tennis team. So I didn't really play under him, but I had the unique, I guess, experience of, like you had mentioned, when I was an assistant and then a young head coach. I had the ability to just talk with him about the coaching experience. And he really honestly coached me more in that realm than as a player. And what I remember from Coach Griffith, we're talking about first interactions, was when I was on my recruiting trip, is the voice. His scruffy voice is just iconic, honestly. I don't know anyone else that talks like him. But the thing that I loved about Coach Griffith was that he was old school, but just a genuine, simple, good guy. And so I think my best memories are just being up in the more when I was a coach and being up and just talking to him about the team. But a lot of times, and I talked to him a lot about Samuel, his son, and just what he was going through. Nothing like that, just like, what he was into, sports he was playing, that type of stuff. Coach G always was talking about his son Samuel. And I think if Samuel's, listening to this, should definitely know that his dad loved him so much, because we talked about him all the time, and just, getting into sports and all that stuff. So my best memories of Coach G are that he was just a genuine good guy.
Yeah. Well, now I haven't introduced everybody yet, but if anybody wants to take a crack at the Coach Griffith voice, first off, just give me a hand raise or something here. Does anybody, I don't know this, I need to ask Diane, does anybody know, was that his voice when he was 20, or is that from just being on the court so long that he just eventually, okay, wait a second. We've got someone. So Virginia, I think you know the story here, Virginia.
I do. He had to have surgery on his vocal cords.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly how old he was, but he said he woke up from the surgery and that was the way he talked. And so I was like, but it's better. I don't know what it was before, but I like it.
Okay, so you've answered one of the questions that probably everybody that knew Coach Griffith knew. So Sam, I don't know, somebody else may have it too, but I know at some point, several times he would, if something happened and he would try to say hey, you're not pulling one over on me or whatever, he'd say, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. So I'm seeing heads shaking. So Sam, give us a little coach, just do your best. That may not be,
it's funny because I would never do it really in front of Coach, but then word got around once that I had a Coach Griffith impression, and he obviously called me out and said I wanted to hear it. But yeah, if you're ever trying to pull one over on him, he'd hit you with the I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Or he's like, my wife Diane and I, and then yada 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 would just go on some tangent. But yeah, it was. I remember him calling me out on that, and I mean, I couldn't back down. I had to do it in front of him, and he's like, hey, that's not bad. So,
so you get a little flavor, anyway. So, Mike, I don't know if I've talked to you yet about it, but so Mike Sherman, Mike, you talk a little bit about your experience as a player, and also you were coach too. So you, again, kind of like Mario, have some kind of some perspective from both sides.
Yeah. My name is Mike Sherman. I'm from Dallas, Texas originally, and played from 03 to 07. And then I also was a grad assistant from 2010 to 2012. So, I met Coach Griffith on a recruiting trip to Nashville. Obviously same reactions as everybody else, very much shocked at his voice. But, oh, man, instantly, when I went on that recruiting trip, I think the culture that he created here at Lipscomb was, it was just instantly attractive, especially the tennis team. I mean, when you talk about culture and you talk about leadership, that stuff starts at the top and it just trickles down to the players. And the environment that he created with the guys was, it was awesome. The 4 years that I spent here was amazing. But yeah, I think just to add on to, maybe something slightly different than what everybody else said is, Coach Griffith had an extremely strong faith, and his belief and his influence on that side of things, I think is something just incredible and something that's influenced me for now. It's just one of those things where he truly wanted us to be personally responsible. He reflected values of great integrity and then just pure hard work. He really influenced me on that direction. And I think it's something that I'm just really proud to carry on that flag, hopefully, of discipline and, spiritual disciplines included. It's just something that I am internally grateful to him for, from that mentorship side. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll catch our other two coaches here for just a minute, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to ask our participants here just to kind of share with me. Maybe some of you've already done it, so you may have, may have already gotten to that question with you, but I did want to ask our others kind of just in your mind what, either what made him a great coach or maybe something you've taken from your time playing for him that you kind of still find yourself thinking like, yeah, I'm saying this now here years later, or I'm doing this now, or doing something with my children if you have them, whatever. And it kind of reminds me of Coach Griffith. So I'll ask that in a second. We've got two other people we haven't really officially heard from, I suppose, but one of them you heard from a lot last week, Coach Jamie Yates. He was our guest last week. And so, Jamie, you're back for another week. And I see that the cat has not gotten away, or the dog. I can't remember. We had last week, we had a little excitement there for just a second. But so, Jamie, talk about how you connected, how you crossed paths with Coach Griffith, how you connected with him, what your different roles were. You've known him quite a while and in several different capacities.
Yeah, I knew him as a player, obviously, then also with the racket club. And, hearing Sam and Jackson talk about him as their coach is a little different than I think what I would describe, or Virginia, Elizabeth, Julie, Mike. Is this tough exterior of a guy. And he had a lot of tough love and a lot of fun. I remember him taking us to a Braves game one time. He called me Jaime. He's like, Jaime, are you ready to go put on your rally hat? And I looked at him. I said, what's a rally hat? What are we talking about? And I found out what a rally hat was at the Braves game. But he was just he was really disciplined and really organized. We had this purple shed at the tennis courts, and that thing was organized to a T. And so I saw him really evolve over the past couple years. And, there's this soft guy in there, who loved us all dearly, and really neat person to be able to be around all the time, just would do things that people wouldn't see. One of my last encounters with him was putting up windscreens at the tennis courts about a week ago. And, he beat me to the tennis court, shocker. And he's, has all of his zip ties and tells me, Jamie, go do this, go do that. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And running around. And Dwight Dale, who manages the racket club, says, hey, coach, I need to pay you for your time spent. And he looks at Dwight and he says, Dwight, he said, my name's on this building. That's enough. And that was just that comment right there, has really stuck with me over the past couple of weeks, because that was him. He's that guy that would do the things that some people wouldn't want to do. I think he taught us as players to be disciplined, to be organized, to be prepared. I remember sitting in his players' meetings when it rained, and we had our little notebook, and he had Bible verses on it. I was looking through them the other night, and they're really, I saved all of them, and it's just a really salt of the earth guy. And one of the quotes I think that has stuck out was, Jesus came to this earth not to be served, but to serve. And that guy served a lot of people, all of us for sure, and so many more people from here to Haiti. And just, his pickleball, when he was out there this past Saturday, I came up on Saturday night to kind of pick up and everything was very Coach G organized. He just really disciplined, hardworking guy.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned, but you alluded to it. His name, it's the Houston Marsh Griffith Tennis Center. And so Bill Houston, former trustee and teammate and friend of his, and then Stephen Lee Marsh, and then Lynn Griffith, all friends and people that knew each other back, from college days, and their names are all on the building. And so, that's what he was talking about. And Sam, you mentioned to me last night actually the same verse that Jamie just mentioned is one you remembered. So he obviously continued to keep that in mind. I thought it was interesting. He kind of tied that verse a little bit to tennis, which I think is interesting. If you remember what we were talking about then, maybe you could talk about the little serve, the little twist he had on the serve idea there.
Yeah, so he said in tennis it's always better to serve than to be served to, just because you control the point. He's like, and he always would be like, Jesus would be a great tennis player because he always is looking to serve, which I mean helps you remember it, and just makes it really cool coming from him. But yeah, I guess that's a thing he said across all his tennis teams, that it's better to serve than to be served.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, now you've had a couple of years to kind of distance yourself from the program and moved on to do other things and that sort of thing. But do you still find anything that you remember about Coach Griffith that kind of made him a good coach to you, or some ideas or things that you take from your time playing with him as the coach that you still reflect on today?
Definitely. I think, like everybody's mentioned, I think tough love describes him perfectly, but I think the word love is what describes him most. I mean, he was definitely tough on us, and he expected a lot, but he did it out of love and kindness. And so, he was just the best. He was supportive of everything that we wanted to do, each person's individual goals and dreams, and he helped make sure that we, achieved those goals. So it wasn't all about tennis. It was making sure that we were a well-rounded person, that we were a good tennis player, most importantly, that we were a good Christian and a nice person, but then also what were we going to do after tennis and helping us support those goals. One thing I remember him talking to us about was the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And that still comes back to me sometimes when I'm trying to do something. I'm like, wait, just kiss.
Right.
Keep it simple. Done.
Yeah. Julie, you're a parent now, and so I've heard a couple people talk about, obviously he was a father, And maybe that somehow over time softened him up. I'm getting the sense from some of the players that played for him in the early 2000s that they're saying, what I'm hearing from Sam and Jackson sounds a little bit different, but not too much actually. But so Julie, you're a parent now. What do you think in terms of him being a coach? Do you think that had any sort of impact on the way he coached, or could you kind of see that now as a parent, the perspective maybe he brought to it in his coaching style?
Oh, definitely. I think it's all intertwined.
Okay.
He wasn't just a coach or just a parent or just a fan. It was all the same person. I mean, we referred to it. He was our tennis dad. Like when we were, at college, like our parents couldn't come to every match. They couldn't travel with us all the time. Like it was during the week and everything. And he was our dad. And I was blessed to be able to go to Haiti with him and his son Cole one summer on a mission trip, kind of early on. And, I just kind of saw a different side of him there, like a different passion for building church roofs or playgrounds for the children's home there. And he was like a father, which was great. I mean, my father is wonderful. I love him to death. He's my everything. But Coach Griffith kind of came in and filled that role for us, and he's always been there. He was at my wedding. He gave my son swim lessons, and recently my son and his grandchildren have gone to the same school. So I would see him at school lunches. So it's just kind of come like full circle with he's just, everything. It's all what he does in his personal life trickles over into his professional and coaching life. And it's just all one and the same. He just loves, like Elizabeth said, and it's just family. He just makes you feel like family.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it, is just kind of that integrated approach. And you mentioned the Haiti work that he did. That was really near and dear to his heart. And his son Samuel is actually from Haiti. And so I didn't think about this till just last night. I was reading Mark Gent, who used to work in missions at Lipscomb University, reminded me in what he posted online that Lipscomb Athletics right now does probably 6, 7, 8 mission trips a year. We probably send 100, 120, maybe 130 on a big year athletes to different mission spots all across the world. And really, Coach Griffith kind of got that ball rolling back 2006, 2008, somewhere right in there. I can't remember exactly, but as you said, he took a group to Haiti and served there, and then that really was kind of one of the catalysts for trying to figure out ways that we could get athletes involved in missions. That's hard because they have a kind of a full-time thing going on year round, but it's a different story for a different time. But he was kind of a pioneer in that regard. So Jackson, anything from your mind that you just think, hey, this is still some things, anything to add or different or about your experience with Coach Griffith that you find yourself reflecting on here just a few years out?
Yeah, just two different things stand out. One of them was, as any tennis player goes through, when there's a match that you have a game that you should have you thought you should have won, or something happens, that I would always remember I would see Coach kind of make the Emperor's March to the court and kind of walk down, and I'm like, uh-oh. And so he would always just be like, he wouldn't necessarily say anything super important, but he would always say, 1 point at a time, you still have the match, and you can't focus on what's already happened because he's like, you're down 4-1 or whatever. You did this to yourself, but you can take it 1 point at a time. And so I've taken that 1 point at a time thing with me, that maybe if something doesn't go my way or if something didn't happen the way I thought it should have, I always can think of Coach Griffith saying 1 point at a time, which just means worry about your next step. You can't worry about what's already happened. And I don't know the exact record of my games won versus lost after he would show up, but I was significantly better after Coach would do the march towards the court. And then the other thing is, I'm sure he's done this with all his teams, but he would write on the board we would go up to the Lipscomb University classrooms where he'd teach if it was raining or before the season started, and he would say, here's the 5 P's, and it was proper preparation prevents poor performance. Tongue twister there. But that was something that has always stuck with me since then, is that if you can prepare properly and just have the right preparation, then you're going to be able to have a good performance. And so whenever that's with a job interview or with a relationship or with anything, it's just, you got to take the time to prepare. And I think Coach Griffith, as everyone would agree, is a well-prepared man. And those 2 things, the 5 P's and then the 1 point at a time, are just 2 small things that stick with me.
Those are both great, and we kind of heard that from some others as well in different ways that they said that. Mike, what about you? Anything that you just take away from your time? You've had a little bit of distance now, not too long, but anything else that you think of that just either made him a great coach or things that you've just taken away that you thought of while we've been visiting here?
Yeah, I think about also just the amount of laughs we had. I mean, Coach G was not afraid to embrace, other teammates' nicknames. He was not afraid to be made fun of himself. Like, I take a lot. I mean, I was just talking with Jeff West, another former player, recently, just about some of the stuff, some of the funny moments we had with him. We had a nickname for him. Obviously Ward was his huge nickname, but there was a moment where, our team was having some trouble and some players ended up having to get, kicked off basically. And, Andrew Harris came up with a name called Sharpie for him, just crossing people off the list. And, that was it was just hilarious. And he embraced that name for probably, maybe a couple of years where we, anytime anybody got in any trouble, it was automatically, the Sharpie's coming out. And, everybody would get in line. And of course he laughed. I mean, he thought it was hilarious too. But I mean, just anybody's nickname, he was not afraid to call them that and just, dig under their skin a little bit. And I really appreciate the fact that he was just not above, it's okay for coaches, sometimes to be, a little bit removed, but, just the way that his style was to be always there and just, at times be an equal and be able to interact with us in a way that you felt very much appreciated and loved. I mean, just a great man.
Now, Virginia, you actually still, I think, do a little bit of coaching, maybe, or teaching anyways, tennis. So have you found any of your experience translates over into what you're doing now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I actually call him quite a bit and ask for some advice, especially with, like, my 10 and unders, because he loved coaching those little guys and being like the first one to put a tennis racket in their hands. And so I got a lot of good ideas from him, but I find myself with some of my high school players. I use the term hunker down quite a bit. I don't know if y'all all heard that.
Oh yeah. All right.
And yeah. And I mean, what Elizabeth said, the KISS principle. I mean, I feel like I do that constantly, like, especially when I'm trying to figure out, like, what is this player doing wrong? Like, what's wrong with their stroke? What's wrong with this? Like, how can I not fix them? And I do that whole KISS system. All right, let's break it down. Let's keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Does anybody, we'll kind of wrap up our time here. And y'all have been great. Thank you so much. I know obviously this was unexpected event, and so we didn't have weeks to plan for this or anything, but it really says something that so many of you would be willing just to stop what you're doing and visit about Coach Griffith. And I know that you'll connect with Diane and the family in other ways, and so I know she'll also be watching this, and it'll be meaningful for her and her boys. So I'd kind of said at the first that if anybody had any, you don't have to answer this, and you've shared a lot, so maybe you've already done it. But if there's anything we missed that in your mind was just kind of this is just kind of such a Coach Griffith moment, that happened with our team, or maybe it was during a match or a drill or anything like that. Is there anything that's still kind of left out there on the table a little bit? You kind of give you a little hand or something. I kind of know if maybe not, but Jackson, it seems like you've got at least one, and Jamie too.
Yeah, this is a random story, but Coach Griffith and I bonded over the Nashville Predators a lot because we just would talk hockey, and I think maybe once we went to a game or sat near each other for a game. But it somehow came to his attention that I knew all the lyrics and words to "O Canada," the Canadian national anthem, and so I don't know why he kind of was talking to me about it. And at one practice, it was wrapping up, and we were circled up. And he had printed off like multiple sheets of the Canadian national anthem and told me to perform it before we left practice. And he had sheets for all of us. I think he was trying to get us to sing it, but he had taken the time to print off the sheets for the Canadian national anthem. And I sang it in an opera style after practice. So that was just one of the moments that Coach was being funny. And I can still remember that when he printed off those sheets.
Jeff, well, later on we may have you do that. I have a feeling you probably know "O Canada" pretty well.
I'm gonna have to get one of those sheets because it ain't happening.
Okay, all right. So Jamie, you had one other thing to share too. I think
not really a story, but Virginia has a really good story about a river that she needs to tell before we let go. But just not a Coach Griffith story, but just a Coach Griffith moment, I guess, for me this week, as I tried to call as many alums as I could to let them know. And when making these phone calls, it was, that's very him. The amount of people that he had been reaching out to just within the past 2 weeks was amazing. That message, happy anniversary, or he messaged someone, what's going on in your life? How are you doing? I know he texted Virginia. It's just, we're all removed, early 2000s. I take it for granted because I was able to see him so much more, but just that investment as a coach and a person, all this time removed, still had that connection and made that effort to keep that connection. And I think that just really set a time.
Yeah. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Well, now, Virginia, you kind of got called out. So, something about
totally
a river.
Got called out. Yeah. So I work at Maker Patton, which is a tennis center in Chattanooga, and Coach Griffith played there in the 70s with his wooden racket, and he got mad during a match. And where the tennis center is, there's the Tennessee River right behind it. So he got so mad that he turned around and chucked his racket over the fence and into the Tennessee River. And that was one of his favorite stories to tell, because his dad said to him, well, son, you better get a job or something, because I'm not buying you another one.
Good for him. And that doesn't surprise me. That none of that story surprises me, actually, that might have happened at some point. And also that his dad, you kind of could see in the way he dealt with things, he probably had a parents who or the same way. So that's a great one. Well, is there anybody else? We're about to wrap up this part of it, but anybody else have any things they want to share, or just thoughts, things that come across? But you guys have been great, and certainly have been more than generous with your time. And so Elizabeth and Julie and Virginia and Jamie, Mike, Sam, Jackson, Jeff, you'll stay with us here for a minute, but all of you guys, and Mario's gone. He had to cut out, as I said at the start. He already off doing his job. But thank you so much to all of you for being on here. I think you've helped our listeners and viewers get a little bit of a sense of what made Coach Griffith special. And the thing that strikes me the most is, I heard one time people say that life, it is a lot less having $1,000 bill moments where you kind of have $1,000 to give somebody and do something huge, and it's a lot more taking $1,000 bill, if there is such a thing, and breaking it into quarters, and you kind of dole it out at a quarter at a time, and that's what kind of Coach Griffith, as I'm thinking about it, so many of you just have memories of just interactions or calls or conversations or moments with him, and really that's what made him special, is he just invested in the lives of people, but he didn't just do one big moment. It was just day by day, week by week, month by month. And obviously it has been amazing actually to see how many people that played for him have reached out to Lipscomb right now just to express their condolences and their fond memories of him and that sort of, and just all of those things. And so you guys have done a great job of representing a lot of people who feel that way. So we'll say thank you so much. We hope to see you soon, and just appreciate all of you joining us here on this time to think about Coach Lynn Griffith. Thanks, everybody.